Don't be afraid of making a mistake. Don't be afraid of uncertainty. Don't be afraid of being wrong. Life is rigged in your favor. It will all make sense, not right now, but in hindsight. You just have to have the courage to wait it out. Hey, listener, welcome to episode number 117 of Listen Up. So we are in the last Sacred Sunday of July. But before we move on to the upcoming month and naming our intentions for August, I felt compelled to share one more story that I wanted to share in July. And it is about design. In this month, we have devoted a lot of time to thinking about designing your life with joy, with purpose, with meaning, and with intention. But here is a part of the story that maybe not everybody talks about, but everybody is scared of. And that is what happens when the design goes wrong and you feel like you've made a mistake. Then what? I have been living in that story for several years now, not through myself, but through my kids. And I'll preface this by saying this is not a parenting episode, but this story is about how we've navigated my kids' experiences in the last few years and how I've had to sit in the messy middle of not knowing if we made the right call, and how we've approached it as a family and emotionally, and what we're learning from it as we go. So I have to give you some context so that you understand where this is all coming from. I've got 3 boys. My oldest is 17. My middle one is 15, and my little one is 13. They're respectively going into 8th grade, 10th grade, and senior year. And the last few years have, as it relates to their school life, has been like playing musical chairs. The joke is, if you approach me in the street and ask me what school my kids go to, it's going to be a different school than it was last year, because we continue to change our minds and put them in different programs. And I know from the outside, it must look like we are batshit crazy. Like, why can't we decide on a school for our children? Why do we keep changing our minds? Why has there been so much turnover in our lives? And you may wonder, what is it because they're uncompliant in school? Are they not behaving properly? Can they not hack it academically? Are they being bullied? Like, what's going on? And the truth is that none of that is the case. And yet we have been actively designing our lives and making choices in hopes that we find the place that they are meant to be in. Now, when I was growing up, this was a non-issue. I went to the same school my whole life, the same elementary school, the same high school, the same college, the same law school. I was very consistent and very stable. So this is a deviation from how I grew up. And if you've ever been in a situation where you are parenting in a deviation from how you grew up, there can be a little bit of fear of that if you feel like your way was the right way, or like it worked out for you. I've always felt like that consistency worked out for me. So I've wanted my children to have that consistency. And yet our life has had a different path. I'd also like to point out that I have married a man who unapologetically follows his intuition and has no fear in making bold moves, making quick decisions, and pivoting and readjusting and going for what he thinks is right. So that's been an interesting dynamic also, because I came from a world of I don't like to make haste decisions. I think about things. I am not one to spark change too quickly, too drastically. I'm very sensible, very pragmatic. But my husband is fierce. And as the leader of our family, he leads that train and has brought me along with him to make bold and brave moves and leave the fear behind. But it hasn't been easy. So that's just a little bit of context. Now, my oldest child is an actor. We had him in a school, but he wanted to pursue his acting career. So we moved him to a magnet school. And that was the first time that we ever played with the idea of switching our kids' schools. But it was very specific. It was for an intended purpose. And he ended up in a magnet school for acting. And that was that. My other two kids, they stayed in their regular school, the school that they had grown up in, and my oldest son was the only one that was in a different school, and that was fine. And then on one random day, on a Sunday, my husband and I were laying on the couch watching football, and my husband turned to me and said, "I think Justin needs to go to a new school." And I looked at him and I was confused. Justin was perfectly fine at the school he was at. But Orlando made this bold statement. I said, "Where's that coming from?" And he said, "Well, I know that he wants to play football and he can start playing football in 7th grade. And his current school doesn't have a football team, but this school does have a football team. And it's a nice Christian school. I think he's going to have a great environment." My husband went to a small Christian school where he played football and he had a great experience. He said, "I would prefer to put him in a school where he's going to have a team and camaraderie and that football experience than putting him in a park outside of his school. I think this is the move for him." And it came out of nowhere. It was like an intuitive download. So I looked up the application. We had about a week to apply. We spoke to Justin. We took him to the school, had him tour, meet the coaches, meet the teachers, look around, and he had buy-in. He was like, "Let's do it. I want to play football here." So in a week's time, we uprooted our entire life and changed everything and said, "Okay, Justin is going to leave this school. He's going to go to the next school." And at the time, there was absolutely nothing wrong with where he was. He was doing just fine. But my husband had this fervent belief that he should go to this new school to play football. What we did not expect was the domino effect that was going to come from that decision, the momentum that was going to stir. So my son goes to that school and everything is great. He's having a great year. He immediately took to the school. It was a great experience. And his older brother started to see the experience he was having in his school. And we noticed that his older brother's emotional state was declining a bit. And we were like, "What's going on?" And one day in conversation, we learned that Orly felt that he wasn't in the right place. He felt that his time had come where he needed to choose something different. That's what that episode, Getting Off the Bus, was all about. We pulled him the following year and we put him in the school that Justin was at. And we did that without hesitation because we just knew it was the right move for him. What I often laugh about is that we always thought that just Orlando's intuitive download was just to put Justin in this school. But we later realized that it was a double move. It was really meant to bring Orly to this new school. And it was a game changer for him. Orly's life changed significantly in a great way. And he has had the most beautiful high school experience. And we're so grateful that he found that school. We moved Justin in 7th grade. So this was an off year. It wasn't even a transition year for these kids. Okay. So that's how unconventional this was. We moved him in 7th grade. But when we moved Orly, Justin was going into the 8th grade. Orly was going to be going into the 10th grade, and Ryan was going to go into the 6th grade. And because Ryan was in a transition year, we thought maybe this is a good opportunity to also bring Ryan into this school. Why? Because Ryan also plays sports. So we were going to have a similar experience that we had with Justin. He was going to want to play football. He was going to want to be on a team. And the school he was at wasn't going to support that. So why don't we put him in the school with his brothers? We'd get the benefit that the three of them would be in one school for the first time ever, because up until then we had 2 boys in one school, the older one in a different school. Then for that year, we had 3 kids in 3 different schools, and there was a 2-hour commute to get everybody to where they had to go. And it was a lot of work. But I always did that work gladly because I felt that my kids were where they were supposed to be. And that's the whole point of design, is you design your life in a way where you feel you are thriving and making good choices and living your best life. So I had no problem with it. But this new design would give me so much peace of mind and convenience. Can you imagine? Convenience. Amazing. So Ryan toured the school, also had a good experience. We also had his buy-in, and all 3 boys went to the same school. And we were done. And it was amazing. Except that it didn't turn out the way that we thought it was going to turn out. Ryan didn't take to the school. We tried all year. It wasn't a 1-month situation or a 2-month situation. The entire year, he just didn't feel like he was supposed to be there. Ryan is also deeply connected to his intuition. He's a sensitive kid, and his environment is very important to him. And for some reason, he wasn't happy at that school. And what was really frustrating about it is we didn't know why. There was nothing visibly wrong. He wasn't being bullied. He made friends. The teachers liked him. He was getting good grades. He was on the lacrosse team, on the football team. The coaches loved him. Everything on the outside seemed perfectly fine. There was nothing indicating a problem. And yet, he would come home, and I could see the deep sadness in his face. He just didn't want to be there. And one day he said to me, "Mom, what's so annoying is I know I'm not supposed to be there, but I can't tell you why. I can't articulate that there is something wrong because there's really nothing wrong. It's just the way I feel." And it's so frustrating. We spent the entire year like that. The entire year I saw my son suffering. And I kept thinking to myself, why? The whole time, what made it worse was that my son kept saying to me, "I've made a big mistake. I shouldn't have left. I was fine where I was. Why did I make this decision? This was the worst decision ever." This is a young kid. He's a 6th grader. And he's feeling the weight of his choices and feeling deep regret, feeling like the design went wrong. And that entire year, I had to look at him straight in the eyes and with confidence say to him, "This was not a mistake. This is a growth year. This is a resilience building year. This year's going to matter one day. This is where your character is built. Things don't always have to be joyful and happy and perfect for you to get through them. Sometimes it is the years that you suffer the most, that you learn the most. There are lessons for you here. This is going to matter one day. Life is, in fact, rigged in your favor. And this is temporary. He did not believe me. He would cry and would say, Mom, this is never going to mean anything. This is just bad. And I would laugh because I do know better. I do know better. But I had to sit with him and watch him struggle through that year. And we did. And we gave it the entire year before we allowed him to make the decision to go back to his old school. At the very, very, very end of the year, he looked at me and he said, Mom, the best way for me to describe how I feel is that this school is a house and my old school is a home. And I want to go home. And it was when he said that we said, okay, you can go home. So we were going to once again make the choice to pull him out and take him back to where he came from, back home for him. So Ryan went to his homeschool. That very same year, we noticed something else with Justin. We noticed that Justin was entering a season where he seemed to be slipping in school. Socially, he was doing great, but academically, not so much. I felt like he had lost interest in school. I felt that he was a little lost. There was something that just wasn't right. And during that time, I discovered a new program, an innovative school that I had just learned about that had a different model that I thought was going to be the best thing ever for Justin, academically, entrepreneurially, for his autonomy. I was so convinced that this new school was it. I immediately took Justin to shadow the school. I wanted him to explore it. We started to learn about it. And I will say that Justin wasn't convinced. He was a little conflicted because the school was very small and it was just starting. So he wasn't 100% convinced. But we got several synchronicity signs that suggested that this was the right move for him. Justin wavered back and forth, and I was going to allow it to be his decision ultimately. And one day he decided that he was going to trust me and he was going to go to this new school and he was going to test it out. And just like I told his brother, this is temporary. It's an experiment. If it works out, great. And if it doesn't, you could always go back. So Justin also left his school to go to this new program. And that didn't work out either. At some point, Justin realized that he had made the wrong call. The school in and of itself was wonderful. There was so many things he loved about it, but it was too small for a high schooler. Justin longed for that robust high school environment. Just more children, more teachers, more opportunities. He longed for that. And the school that he was at was very isolating and very lonely. Even though there was so many things about it that were great for Justin. So once again, we were put in this position of Justin looking at me and saying, I've made a mistake. I made the wrong call. Now, in Justin's case, it was a little more complicated because getting back into his school didn't prove as easy as we thought maybe it would be. These schools are in super high demand. Entrance is very limited. There are a lot of applications. It's not a guarantee that you can go back. So Justin had to sit with the reality that maybe he had made a choice that he wasn't going to be able to undo. He was going to have to stay there. And at that point, he felt that he really should go back to his old school. And he looked at me and again questioned, why did I make this choice? Why did I trust you? Why couldn't I have just stayed where I was? I had a friend who had called me before I made that decision, and she had said to me that she strongly disagreed with me taking Justin out of his school. I had just taken him out in 7th grade. He had done 7th and 8th in this one school, and I was going to take him out again. And she said, it's too much change for this kid. He needs a place where he could grow roots, where he could adjust, where he could, mature. It's not a good idea. You shouldn't move him. And she made really great points. She made a lot of sense. But intuitively, I felt strongly that he needed to go to this school. And I wanted to take the risk. I wanted him to take the risk because I didn't want to live with the what if he would have gone. I didn't want the regret of a design we never tried. Nikki Novo is a friend of mine, and she wrote a book called Soul-Led Living. And I believe that what we do in our family is we live a soul-led life. But Nikki Novo talks a lot about trusting your intuition. And the question she often receives is, how do I know my intuition is right? What if my intuition is wrong? How can I trust it? And in an interview that she and I had once, it's here on the podcast, we did a podcast episode about it. She said something that was very important. She said, oftentimes, when we have an intuition about something, we complete the story with our imagination. We create the ending of the story. And it's usually a Hollywood version of whatever your imagination is. So, as to give you an example, you feel called to date someone and you think, oh, my intuition is leading me to date this person. And then you complete the story and say, because I'm supposed to marry them, have children with them, and be with them for the rest of my life. I kind of felt that way about this school. I had this intuition that my son was supposed to go to this school. And then, of course, my imagination completed the story so that he can graduate from that school, have the greatest experience, thrive, change his life. Kind of like Orly's story was. That's what I wanted. What I've realized in all of this is that we are often more disappointed by the ending that we imagined not panning out than the actual choice we made. That's what was happening to us with Justin's school. Now, I held as firm with Justin as I did with Ryan, looking him straight in the eyes and saying, this is not a mistake. This is an opportunity for growth. I stand corrected. Even if this was a mistake, it was an opportunity for growth. Failure is not failure if you learn from it. Mistakes become magic when you can bring meaning to them. It's okay that we made the wrong call. There is something for you to learn here. Life is rigged in your favor. This is temporary. There is opportunity for you to build character, for you to build resilience, and for you to learn something from this experience. And he said, but what if I can't go back? I said, well, if you can't go back, that means your work here is not done. There is more for you to learn from this place. And I know that it'll improve I know that it'll be better. But if you are meant to go back, those doors will open for you. And you will go back. And then there will be more lessons for you to learn from that experience. Ultimately, he did get accepted back into his old school, and he'll be going there this fall. And when we look back at the year, there was so many wonderful things about that year. He had such an incredible experience. There was joy, there was autonomy. He traveled, he made great friendships. His guides supported him and loved him and saw him for who he was. He grew academically tremendously. He had space to think, to dream, to mature. It was a wonderful experience, even though the entire time he thought he had made a mistake. And I think it's important for all of us to recognize that even in the messy middle, when we think we have made a mistake, there is still good from it. There is joy, there are blessings, there are miracles, there are lessons, there's opportunities for growth and character building and resilience and all of the things. It's what makes this human experience human. In the book, Designing Your Life, the author says that we can live many lives in this lifetime. We are not married to living just one life in this lifetime. I think that's one of the beautiful things about design, is you try on different lives in one lifetime. And maybe you don't want to try on a different life, and that's fine. But if you do, and you realize it's not a good fit, you know that you can make different choices. And there is something there for you. There are lessons to be learned. Now, I wish I can tell you that everything's going to be wrapped up in a perfect bow. My son is going to go back to his old school. He's going to realize that everything was exactly as he wanted it to be. He's going to have a deep appreciation. He's going to take super advantage of his new school that he's going back to, and he is going to thrive. But I don't know if that's going to be the case or not. We're still in the thick of it. We're still working through it. We are in the messy middle together. What I do know is that I have spent the last 3 years, each year, watching one of my kids struggle with his design and have to do something about it. And I believe that is the best thing that they've been through. And I am honored to be a part of it and to hold that lighthouse for them and say, everything is going to be okay. There are lessons for you here. Don't be afraid of making a mistake. Don't be afraid of uncertainty. Don't be afraid of being wrong. Life is rigged in your favor. It will all make sense. Not right now, but in hindsight. You just have to have the courage to wait it out and the courage to name where you're at and name where you want to go, and then nurture that. It's been a huge growth opportunity for our family. And I'm so grateful for Orlando because his confidence and his fearlessness in making these moves has settled my heart. He allows us to pivot. He believes that everything's going to be fine. He trusts that the stability we've given our kids in our home is enough to hold them through navigating the uncertainties of life. Maybe that's why I needed the certainty of school, because I didn't have the same stability at home. So the consistency of going to the same school and the rituals and the traditions supported me. But maybe that's not what my kids need because they already have that at home. And then I think about moving forward into this new generation. All we're going to have in this generation that we see as of right now is uncertainty and change and pivoting. Life as we know it is changing daily. And everyone is going to have to rework their design in one way or the other. The days of pick a lane and you're going to be safe in that lane for the rest of your life, those days don't exist anymore. So I think we are learning valuable skills as a family and them as humans. And that's all I could ask for them. So now I bring it back to you. Are you navigating uncertainty in your life? Are you playing musical chairs with your decisions? Have you felt like you can't make up your mind as to what path you're supposed to take? Maybe you're struggling in your marriage or your career or your parenting, or maybe it's with your children's schools or with your job. If you are, the first step to figuring out where you're at is naming this season. I have been in a season with my 3 kids in the last 3 years. And maybe you're in a season too. We notice, we name, and we nurture. I've built a workshop that I host live. It's called Name the Season Workshop. And it's meant to give you space to reflect on situations like this. Name what is sitting heavy in your heart. Notice what is working and what is not working. Where are the uncertainties? What are your intentions? What direction do you want to head in? We all need this time and this space to do this work, to have these conversations. I'm sharing this with you in the midst of the messy middle because I believe firmly that these are the conversations we need to be having out loud together so that you know you are not alone. Nothing in life is perfect. We are making it up as we go. Testing, tweaking, figuring it out, doing the best we can with what we know. So if this landed with you, if this sits on your heart and you want a space where you can reflect on your own life, I want to invite you to this workshop. I'm hosting it next week. There's 3 opportunities, July 30th, August 1st, and August 4th. You can click the link in the show notes to register. Pick the time and the date that's best for you. And let's carve out 90 minutes to do this very important work. Naming your season is a gift, and it is the first step in nurturing a life of intention. And even if you choose a design that feels like a mistake, I will remind you, just like I reminded my kids, life is rigged in your favor. This is temporary, and there are lessons for you here. So pay attention. That's all I got for you today. I will see you next week. That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for being here. It means the absolute world to me. Now, if this show helps you live with a little more intention and you love it, the best way to support it is by following wherever you listen and leaving a rating or a review. That is how new listeners can find us, and it helps more than you can imagine. So until next time, keep noticing the sparks of bliss in your life. Bye for now.